No music?
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, are we open?
Are we? We're on.
We're on.
We're on.
David Singer here. Hey, listen, folks.
Hey, David Winker here.
David. All right. David and Grant David. That's his middle name. Hey, I got my double dose of vaccine for each of you, so you can have that if you like.
Okay,
so,
you can have both of them.
Let's talk about what's going on.
Okay, wait. Before we do that, you and I both know that I cannot be on a show without naming it. Okay, so I brought some special ideas for you and David.
We have not gone over this, so I'm just waiting to see this.
This is my first idea. I have 3 ideas.
Total. Steve, are you listening? This is his first idea.
3 men and a skeleton.
The one-legged,
okay, a
one-legged skeleton.
They're looking.
Okay. Hold on. Oh, God.
Is that hard for you, David?
Okay, yes.
Tommy's cracking up.
Okay.
Tommy, get a picture of that.
3 men and a rubber ducky.
That's a good one.
Okay, I like this one. And because we're in Miami, hold on, I got to pull this out.
So to speak.
3 men and an empanada.
That's the one.
Okay, so you tell me, okay, which one you like best. I know we have to have 3. It is 3 men, right? Or maybe 2.5 men?
What?
2.5. I'll take that.
1, 2.
Anyway, so which one? What happened to... Did somebody bite off the leg on this thing?
Break a leg.
Break a leg. Okay, so 3 men. I personally like 3 men and a little rubber ducky. So you tell me.
Do you have a pool at home?
No, I got a bathtub.
Okay.
Oh, yes, of course we have a pool.
All right.
It's Miami, for God's sake.
So a couple of things I want to cover. By the way, the state, in case you didn't know, has now passed a law that says you can have a home-based business with a license issued by the government agency, whether it's the county or the city. And you guys might want to look it up. It's a Florida Senate Bill 266. And it essentially says, and I'm looking at it here, because the legislature wants to encourage small businesses that you can open up a store.
A business?
A business that includes a store, all right?
In residential.
In a residential area.
That's right.
And the traffic it has to be similar to the neighbors. Right, I don't know how that's enforceable. So expect there
well, if you're living in a house and you're next to an apartment building, that works out pretty well, right? Because the traffic is next to.
So here's something: the businesses uses no equipment or process that created noise, vibration, heat, smoke, dust. I guess it means the gym is out. Fumes or odors that are plainly detectable from the street, and it lists all the things. And the city and county cannot treat the home business any different than they would a store.
It's part of a wave of preemption. And the idea here is it will not allow local government to put a limitation on commercial activity other than, and basically you have to live there and you're limited to 2 employees and, it can't be producing noise. So, the idea that you're going to have for example, a tire changing store is probably not going to work because of the noise of the compressor and everything, mechanic shop, but, lawyer's office, dentist.
Forget it. How about a 7-Eleven? They only have 2 employees. There's lots of products. What is it? What brain trust passed that bill?
I'm not sure. But anyway, so it barely passed.
Hey, hold up your bill. I love how he prints it up. Like, what kind of printer do you have?
I know, God, he's
hold
old.
that up. It looks like the Declaration of Independence
it
or
is.
something.
It's really large.
He has a really large. This is what they gave me for a glass of water when I walked in here. I said, "Do you guys have any water?" They go, "Yeah, just rinse and spit."
Okay. So next thing. So last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, our governor said, listen, the state of emergency stuff is over. No more masks or whatever it is. But people are in sort of a state of confusion about what to do. What do you think, Counselor?
So I found the thing is, I would say I went to California for spring break. My family did. And, the kids aren't in school. You can't go to a restaurant. And it was very eye-opening to see what that lockdown feels like. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to look at who weathered this best.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that there's a state you can agree or disagree with DeSantis. Did he get lucky or was it planned? But was there a better state to weather this? A better place in the world to weather COVID than Florida?
Let me tell you something. I'm not exactly a huge fan of him, but I think that considering this has nobody's ever gone through this before, I think he's done a very good job. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I think the United States has done a pretty good job too, considering nobody's ever experienced anything like this in the history of the world that I know of.
So, David Winker, so when we in a couple months, we're going to be able to start having some historical memories of that. And we look back, we say, okay, this happened last March and last April. And I think it's progressed pretty well. And at the times, he's usually a month to 3 months ahead. I can see that. But then what the biggest challenge really is that it usurps the authority of the local entity. Yep. And then it sort of takes away. But that is what the state is doing. All right. And there are lots of other people. Washington, a perfect example. Listen to your governors. Yep. Washington was saying that. So there was certainly that mixed message. But I think that tension will be gone, in a month.
But I think there's a need for that, right? Because you can't go through the Village of Palmetto Bay and then the Village of Pinecrest. You can't have different rules for these different municipalities, and these municipalities are like everywhere, right? So it's either the counties are going to deal with it or the state's going to deal with it, because there has to be some basic guidelines. The problem with what he's doing is now you hear that there may be a cruise ship. They got the passport, right? The passport that some of the cruise lines want to use. They want to make sure that everybody has some sort of verification that they've had COVID, which is absolutely necessary for a cruise line because of how in close contact everybody was. He's saying that's not going to work for Florida. I think that's
so
that's
you have
a mistake.
Conflict of state law, federal law, lawsuits. It's like it's an example of the inefficiency of the system.
Yeah.
And I think about being the CEO of a company. Like how do you plan for that?
And the liability to the company that says, okay, we let these people on, and the guy gets it and it gets sick for 3 months and dies. And dies. Mm-hmm. Of course, they're going to be sued, right? And so everybody wants to sort of be covered on that. I can tell you that in our office here, there's only one person left that has not had the injections. All right, and so we're pretty happy. We're very fortunate here, and even with all the shows, nobody got it.
Shows all day through the entire pandemic. But I think that the way that you guys handled it, Michael, is kind of like maybe a little bit of the beef I have with kind of the DeSantis model is I think that we've learned that you should try to stay open. There is some responsibilities. Like if you're a vulnerable person, you have to take care of yourself. But I also don't know why that can't be combined with, it's not a hoax.
Definitely not a hoax.
You need to wear a mask. There's things that I think that it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's like if you want to stay open, here's the rules, right? And do it. And I saw that with the way you guys did it here, right? We used to have the glass screens, and there was a lot of work that went into it. And I didn't perceive it as you guys as a political statement in any way. It was like, hey, we got to keep everyone safe. You had no choice. If you wanted to keep your business open, this is what we got to do.
Yeah, and we had our first breakfast at Casa Cuba here in South Miami a week or so ago. Our guest speaker was the mayor, Cava, and I was wondering how people were going to behave, and I was sort of nervous and curious, and we put on the invitation, please comply with all CDC regulations. And it was just like you'd expect. People got out of their cars, put their mask on, they walk in the restaurant with the mask on, they sit down, they take off their mask. So there's only a question of when they would be standing. That's sort of a funny thing anyway. People are walking by, no masks, or they have them. And there were 100 people that were there, and people felt comfortable enough to go and to stay. Right. And we gave out these tags for everybody over here, and only 2 people said they hadn't had them. So, I mean,
how many people?
107. Yeah, right. So we're pretty.
So you're at 2%.
Yeah. So that's our crowd. Yeah. Right. On the other hand, you have a whole bunch of other people that don't want to.
But let me ask you a question. So we went through a year and a half of this, right? What have we learned? I mean, I think they've learned numerous things, right? They learned just this particular virus, right? That you can't really get it off surfaces. I remember walking around literally when it first, and I was wearing rubber gloves and, the elevators with your elbow and all this stuff. So we've learned that type, but what have we learned as a country? Yeah. Okay. That if this happens again, okay, we don't completely stop the economy and the mass unemployment, and we still can carry out somewhat of a normal, right, cycle in this country. What have we learned? What do you think we've learned?
Well, I think it is that fine line, and it's like it's interesting because in the beginning, Michael, we would have a Ricky Areola, Miami Beach commissioner, and he would he's caught a lot of
Thank you.
He's caught a lot of flack for things that he said. And he was always like what are the rules that make sense? And it was funny because I was thinking about him the other day with, flying to California. So you'd stand in line, you'd have the markers up, you'd spread out, Then you get on the plane, and we're both vaccinated, so I'm going to get like we are. Like we're on the plane like this. After all that, right? My face is 8 inches from this stranger, right? The plane is packed. And there are some inconsistencies in that. And I think what we've learned is try to stay open as best you can. I think we had the advantage of we can go outside during the winter, like the places that are having trouble, like even Canada's not doing that great because it's cold and it's not, we socialize outside. But I think the answer is we don't know, because I think part of what happens is like India, if you look at some of the reports, in March of last year, India was doing okay, super populated place, and now it's doing terrible. And it's almost like how it happened in New York. Like once it catches, once you get to a tipping point,
catches fire.
It can get real bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I'm with you. What don't we know? I think if this happens again, and we may just not have the patience to do anything else. It's like what do you do? If you're vulnerable, protect yourself and keep your head down, and the rest of the people got to go about their business. And it's a very radical thing to say.
And 3 months ago, we figured out how to do it. You're wearing your mask. You could do this. You do that. You go to the grocery stores, and we sort of figured out how to maneuver with that. And I think that people got comfortable with doing that. They didn't like it, but they knew what to do to try to protect themselves. And my wife didn't go out of the house for 7 months, and she was so mad at me one day last year that I had my pedicure done here. She locked me out of the house.
No, that's
from the inside.
That's not why she locked you out of the house. By the way, that has nothing to do with why she locked. That's just an excuse you're using.
Okay. We'll get the list of grievances for that.
A whole list. Yeah. So we're going. I've been moving all my clothes out of our walk-in closet to one of the other closets because she told me the new closet that she's having built, before it was 50-50, it ain't 50-50 anymore. It's like,
so you're still in the closet?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
So speaking of that, I want you to know we're going to be promoting our hosts pretty soon. We're making up little things like this, and we're going to have little bios. We've been
I don't know if you saw that, but I took exception to the fact that you're up here and I'm down there.
I know, exactly. Okay? I love it. Move to a place.
I just don't ever want to be underneath Grant.
I
don't care where I am.
And I got to say, we need to put the thing up there, but look at these pictures. First of all, there's Misty Buck and the rest of the morons here. And
the brain trust.
But the pictures of everybody. I mean, David, how old were you?
I was probably 15, 16 years old.
So let me ask you, did he have hair then? Did he have hair then?
Great. He looks like an Abercrombie and Fitch model.
Okay. I'm not going to say anything about your multicolored hair then.
Okay, that's okay.
Michael Miller looks like that. That looks like a shot you'd see in like a when you with the Playbill, the old Playbill magazine.
It costs a lot of money to get that done.
That's perfect.
And then I got to tell you something. Grant's mugshot.
Speaking of that, he was telling us about the time he got arrested.
Oh no.
Time ago.
But but I've got to tell the story, and I don't know what the connection is, but we had a guest on one time who was a resident of a neighborhood involved in one of these neighborhood disputes, and he's sitting at the end where you are, and Grant comes in to say hi to everybody, and Grant looks at the person and says, "Were you a cop?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Were you a South Miami cop?" And the guy's like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Did you arrest me?" "Didn't you arrest me?" And he looks at him. He goes, "Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything." Like, you brought it up.
Okay, but let me ask you a serious question though. Wouldn't that be the same question if any cop came and sat at the table? I mean,
speaking of that, didn't you get arrested?
I've never been arrested.
Come on, how about the time you beat up somebody down there in the Keys?
I've never been arrested. You can look at my history. I've never been arrested.
Fact checker Tommy.
Not that I probably didn't deserve to be.
Pull up those mugs.
I'm not paying the $20 to do this.
Not that I didn't probably deserve to be when I was in college, but I've never been arrested.
Okay, so I saw a cartoon caricature of you.
Yeah.
All right, on social media the other day. It is a great photograph of you. I can't figure out which one of the three it is. All right, and there were a couple other people who mentioned it. David wants to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, knock yourself out.
Losers Corner.
Yeah.
Losers Corner.
Your show, Gloves Off, has been, people are enjoying the show. What tell me about your background with what are you trying to accomplish with the show?
Well, let's talk about Losers Corner. Number one is that's somebody who made that is what's this word, self-projecting his own insecurities and problems in life. So that's where that probably came from. Okay, my show, and it's like anything else, it's like what you do. So I try to have First of all, everybody knows Palmetto Bay is very close to my heart. So I try to have somebody on.
You live in Palmetto Bay, right?
I live in Palmetto Bay.
Okay.
Once a month, I have somebody on from Palmetto Bay, and we talk about Palmetto Bay politics. But other than that, I try to bring on local politicians or nonprofits. If I had my druthers, okay, I would bring on a lot of nonprofits and charities, because I think right now that they're all really hurting for money because of COVID, and they need to get a lot of publicity out there. So if anybody's watching this, okay, and you know a nonprofit or a charity organization, I'm more than happy to interview them and push out.
Okay, we're going to do a karaoke show. Now, you've been taking singing lessons for 5 years. You had your
5 years, a little bit longer.
How long?
That's okay. But when you can't sing, you have to continue to take singing lessons.
I think you're there for other reasons. But you were nice enough to bring. What is it you want to sing to or from? So, but anyway, Speaking of that, Gene Flynn says, one good thing about this pandemic, we have moved into the 21st century. Let's stay there, keep virtual meetings, court motion. We like that, David Winker. Miami-Dade County is far too large a county to go back driving and waiting.
Everyone tries to stay 6 feet away from David Singer. Well, that could be true. So what was your question? What's the question? What's the question?
What's for dinner?
Do that. What's for dinner?
Let's go back. Let's go back to
Gene.
Well, it's interesting. That's one of the things that's been it's almost like everyone I know involved in local government got COVID. And the reason they got COVID was they had to go back. The governor ordered them back to meetings. And, they've been back at meetings, not letting the public in, but themselves. They can't do quorum remotely. And it is interesting. It's going to be interesting to see now. Miami-Dade the other day, did you see what it looked like?
Packed.
It was packed.
I know
every seat.
You've been in the Miami-Dade courthouse elevators?
6 feet apart.
Those elevators are from like 1930. I mean, you're so packed. Not only that, the Miami-Dade County elevators are the same way. I mean, it's amazing how small those elevators are and how many.
We were smaller people back then.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like 50 people.
So when they put those big labels, they say 6 feet away.
You can't do that.
We're 6 feet,
Yeah.
right?
Do that.
But by the way, I saw some doctors that said we're now taking in-house visits. That's really been going on for about 2 months, because I was doing my yearly checkups, going to each doctor that there was and going around. And so everybody's going to be back doing that. Our positivity rate seems to be dropping, and people seem to be a lot more comfortable and under control. But David, let's talk about.
Wait. Let me ask a question. So you went to see your urologist, okay? And what exam exactly did you get?
He said what I should do is take the blue pill and hold your hand.
Okay. I'm just curious what the urologist said. Isn't that like, don't you go quarterly? Not whether you need to or not, you just go quarterly, right?
Oh, David, what are you going to do?
Okay, what's your question?
Okay, it's already gone.
I got two guys asking me questions here. No, it's like monkey in the middle. Okay, go ahead.
Where were we, David Winker?
You were I can't remember which one you were going to ask about.
Okay, so let's talk about the state took away MDX, made it into statewide. Now the county said we're going to restart MDX.
Oh, come on. Right? It's the same thing, different name, right?
Yes.
You got a can of tuna. I don't care what you call it. It's a can of tuna.
So the struggle is going on, all right, about a home rule charter. And what the county is concerned about, what other things will the state do?
Right. And before we start, so one thing I would say is it's interesting going through this. I went to law school at the University of Florida, and one of the classes they used to make you take when I went to law school so long ago was Florida constitutional law, and it was a notorious hard. The professor loved it. 3/4 of the students just couldn't give a crap. They're never going to have to deal with this stuff. And it was a really in-depth course on this. And one of the things that you learn is the city of Miami-Dade County predate the Florida Constitution, right? They have
I didn't know that
rule. Yeah. So the idea is they were around before, and they gave them certain rights. And so ever since then, there's been this tension of how do you interplay. The state has these rights to take this away, and then Miami-Dade and MDX is a perfect example. They're like, well, no, this you can't take from us. This was guaranteed us by the home rule rights in the Florida Constitution. So you're arguing, they acknowledge the home rule basis for Miami-Dade. So it is something interesting to talk about. Wouldn't apply to all the other municipalities, right, that were afterwards. But City of Miami, Miami-Dade, And there's an argument that the other municipalities through Miami-Dade take these certain rights. So that battle, like you said, over everything is coming to this idea of state preemption and taking it away from who? Primarily large Democratic cities. And
Well,
this-
because on the state level, it's mostly Democrat. I mean, Republicans,
Republican.
right?
So they can
Yeah.
see, they see Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville to a lesser extent,
Yeah.
Miami, of course. And it's like, let's take these powers away from them and make them less effective in what they do. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, because I don't see the state houses, the state government changing anytime soon. I
So,
don't see- I-
so if somebody from Miami County is standing in line to vote, I guess Dade County can still give out bottled water to the line, right?
No, that's that one. No, exactly.
That was in Texas,
It's a
right?
crime. It's a crime to.
To give bottles of water to somebody while they're standing in line to vote.
So here's some things I understand the county government's concerned with. The state could take away the rights of the airport, seaport, and Jackson
You mean
Memorial
our
Hospital.
our largest economic drivers?
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
And tax it, so
Okay.
the money has to go to Tallahassee.
Goes through
for-
Tallahassee.
In some really big news, the mayor of Miami-Dade County wanted MCM not to get a contract at the airport. The county commission overruled and gave the contract to MCM. I don't know the last time.
Let's back up. You know who's MCM?
Munia Construction Company. They were
They're
the,
known for building the bridge that
Yes.
collapsed.
yes,
Killed 6 people, I believe.
yes,
FIU Bridge.
FIU Bridge.
Yeah.
By the way, we had written a story about the bridge going up a week before, and the day the bridge went down, we had 45,000 people that read that story, at least the headline. Then they said, no, we want it when on
Yeah.
its way down. Right? Unfortunately, so a lot of people died. So this is the family.
What was it?
They
the
started a new
general contractor,
corporation.
or was it the architect?
Well, if you read the report, it says all the way up that the builder was only partially responsible, and that and
No, I'm
really
talking about that where the
MCM.
MCM.
they
was
were the
the
builder.
contract.
They were the builders, so they were not the architect or the engineer.
Correct.
Okay.
And
But there was talk of, well, you know, that they had some level of it had to do
Responsibility.
with tensioning.
Yeah.
And the
and people are all
monitoring of it.
talking about it.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, MCM's been doing a lot of building for a long time, and this is really the children and other people, the investors into that company, are brand new, right? And I think people are okay with it, and they obviously had done a good job before that. And the county commission said, "Listen, we want them to get it." And the totality is, I understood, about a $50 million thing. To maybe in the construction business, it's not a gigantic thing, but to them, and I'm happy for them, all right, that they're back in that field. And speaking of that, related company has a contract to build about 450 or so new apartments, about less than 1,000 feet from here. All right, brand new buildings, about 450 or so will be market price. The rest will
Sunset
right over here.
over here. Okay.
They're taking down 60 HUD houses,
Okay.
all right, and they're going to do that. So we've been waiting for that for
And that's
20 years.
for private development, or is
Was that low income housing?
No, only 58 units. The replaced ones are low income,
Workforce housing?
It's workforce, I guess.
So the
Right?
gentrification of this area.
Yes.
Yeah, it's already a done deal.
So here's what I'd say to you. It's interesting you say it, because I've been with Bob Powers, who has a show, and I remember being in with him one time, and he took me on a kind of, it was like a bizarro tour of his area in Little Haiti, and he was just driving me around showing me different changes, and one of the changes was HUD housing after HUD housing saying this contract's up in 8 years, this is in 20 years, this is in 12 years, and basically saying like all this affordable housing
That's awful.
is coming offline
That's awful.
and going to be given out to developers. And it's an interesting development. I mean, when you think about next door, those families living in that affordable housing,
Yeah.
that's it. They're gone.
And they've been there for years, since I was a kid.
Yep.
Because I was born and raised here.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awful.
Right. So more and more of that is going to happen.
Because that's the only developable land, right? I mean, we talked
Yeah, I mean,
earlier.
we
there's
talked
no more
earlier,
land.
there's no more land.
But there
There's
is
no
more
land.
land because the affordable housing land is now going to become
Yeah.
live.
So now here in South Miami, 2nd Avenue and US 1, where the Petco shopping center is down the street from here, the city's looking at plans for that, to redevelop that. At the corner up here, Sunset Drive in US 1, a 4 to 6 story rehab center, and Some of our friends that are in the hospital business are doing that. That's in the planning stages. There's also another building going up, apartment building with a Publix in the bottom of it, supposedly.
Yeah, it's
on 60 First Avenue and Sunset.
I don't mind apartments so much, but they have to focus on workforce housing, and they have to focus on low income housing. Okay, because these people that are getting displaced are going to have no place to go, and that's a huge issue.
All right. So what happens with all these big companies that are moving down? The executives that are moving to South Florida, mostly on the east side. All right, spending millions and millions of dollars. Some of the offices downtown, whole floors are being rented out to the big companies. So those folks that come in, they're making between 75 and 300,000 plus people that are working there, right? And they're going to buy houses and drive up the price of those houses, as is occurring now, right? A friend of mine bought in Coral Gables, I think it was $700 a foot, $800 a foot. Yes.
I put my house. I should put up my house up for some.
That's in the Gables. You don't live in the Gables. You live in that place down there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, by the way, there's an election coming up in a year and a quarter down there in Palmetto Bay.
Yeah.
The mayor's position's up.
We're not talking about Palmetto Bay. So what do you want to talk about, David? I talked about Palmetto Bay yesterday.
All right.
Okay.
You want to talk?
Let's talk about term limits.
Okay.
And what you guys' thoughts are on term limits, both statewide and national.
Tell me. I mean, I gotta tell you, I'm so torn. I mean, I was thinking about term limits the other day, and somebody was talking about it was Cindy Lerner.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about her time had nothing to do with term limits, but it was talking about Cindy Lerner and her time at the state capitol. And someone said, her time was unremarkable, but they were defensive of her, saying, when you get to Tallahassee as a freshman rep, you don't know anything about anything. And it takes some time to get up to speed. And it made me think of, and it wouldn't have mattered who it was. It just happened to come in a conversation with her. And then they redrew her district and eliminated her district.
Is that 2 terms or 3 for state
It
rep?
was 3 for state rep.
Okay.
But the point being that, that's the downside of term limits, right? The term limits is like they don't know how to do anything. And I see it. I do a lot of government work, and you can see the fresh, especially if they don't come from another government background, the parliamentary nature of it.
Yep.
You see people just running circles around them because they don't know the mechanics.
Okay, so I got a great way to solve that. So whoever gets reelected, you give them some sort of week course, okay, where they learn all those specifics, and they don't have to learn on their own. But the fact of the matter is, I think this country is getting hurt with these permanent politicians that are in the Senate for 60 years. First of all, there's no new fresh ideas, right? But
isn't that really term limits, which is the voters decide, right? So you can go in for a couple terms.
No,
but what happens to the politician?
Listen, you and I both know that running an election is mostly about money being received from special interest groups, right? Or PACs. Now they have super PACs and all that stuff. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you need to get new blood in there, and you can't have these permanent politicians that are just taking money from every single special interest group to sit there and at the benefit of those special interest groups. The politicians actually forget, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, who they're voted to represent. Are they voted to represent special interest groups and business, or are they voted to represent the people that their districts are?
So let's talk about in city politics, not anyone in particular, but a developer goes to the city, say, listen, I want to put up this beautiful project. Looks good and everything. Meanwhile, the homeowners are going, you took a campaign contribution. You're a bad person. They're a developer and they're terrible. And the homeowners, I don't remember the last time I heard a homeowner, yes, I want a shopping center to go up next door to me.
Or I want more density on my street.
That's not that. By the way, that's not true. There's a lot of people that want certain aspects of a shopping center. Everybody wants a Trader Joe's down the street from their house. Everybody.
See, I got to say something.
Yeah.
That's spoken like a politician. I mean, in a good way.
Yeah.
You're right. The voters are more complicated, and I see it representing neighbors, because I think that the way that I would describe the answer to Michael's question, I'd be like interested in yours. Bob Powers again talks about coming to Miami, early 80s. the way he says it is you could drive I don't want to use the bad word he says, but you could drive a in 727 and land it between those buildings back then. And he said, we made a decision as a city that we had to increase that, right? All that oceanfront property was too valuable. We're going to build it up. So today Brickell looks like it does, right? It's packed. And he's like, that's fine. We as a society can make that, these young people need a place to live, to raise families. But what do we get in return for it? What do we get from the people making all that money? And he says we should have gotten world-class schools, world-class parks, world-class public transportation as part of it. Let those developers pay for that instead of running off with all the money.
The developers actually give impact fees. Okay, so when you're building something, you're going to give impact fees to either the municipal government or City of Miami or Dade County or whatever. It's what the politicians do with that money. Yeah. I mean, as working for a development company, we have no control over what you do with the money after we give it to you. I mean, they could sit there and take the money that's supposed to be for the roads and improve infrastructure, which reminds me of the first time I met you. We were talking about half-penny sales tax.
The misuse
of half-penny sales tax. And they take that money, and if it's for infrastructure, and they use it to build nicer offices for themselves and their staff, what are you supposed to do? I mean, it's a bait and switch on the residents.
Okay, let's talk about Southam Shopping Center. I've been struggling for decades. Right?
Which shopping center?
Southam.
Cutleridge
Mall. So there's some drawings that are floating around about a real development out there. Home, businesses, right on the property. Looks very nice. Very future.
Dadeland. Looks like Dadeland.
Right.
By the way, Southam Mall is owned by 3 different entities. Sears owns one entity unless they've sold it. Southam Mall owns one, and I think somebody else owns.
I didn't know that it was divided there.
Yeah.
So 15, 20 years ago, Mercedes-Benz says we're going to open up a place in Cutler Ridge, Cutler Bay. And
right off the turnpike.
And it was like, first they said, well, they know what they're doing. They wouldn't be doing that if there wasn't a business there. So now, 20 years later, that mall, something's going to happen to it.
It's going to definitely get redeveloped.
For sure. You've been in the field for a while.
Yeah, I mean,
and you're a CPA somehow. God, folks, I got to tell you something.
I can count to 9. 9?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's going to get me done. I saw some drawings on Facebook. All right, and the city is saying, "Come down, everybody, participate in this." So it'll be easier for the politicians to say, "Here's a development. You happen to like it because you said yes if something is next door, and a place where people can go and not be fearful, and they're going to be real stores that they can walk into, and they have some good products." So what's going to happen to other malls around the country?
I think so. From what I've seen, and I can only talk about some of the stuff I've seen. There were some retailers that were going out of business, and the biggest mall. Mall group.
They own or manage hundreds and hundreds.
Actually have bought some of these retailers so they could keep the retailers in place and they could keep their malls occupied. It's very interesting what's going to happen. Malls were, before the epidemic, malls were moving to more of a kind of like restaurants, entertainment experience to bring people in, because honestly, if you can spend 2 seconds to sit there and get on Amazon and buy something, unless something drags you into the mall, you're not going to get in your car and go to the mall. Now, some of the retailers are getting smart and going, you know what? I'm going to be in a large local strip center, so I don't have to pay the $100 a month rent, because mall rent is, can you imagine? You got AC, you got security, you got, it's all enclosed and everything. The rent and the CAM, which is common area maintenance and real estate taxes and insurance, is so high at malls. They're like, well, we can really seriously cut our bottom line on our financial statements if we move to a neighborhood center. And we have one of those right now that is thinking about moving into one of our shopping centers. But they're going to have to really be smart and proactive. They may have to build hotels on some mall sites or residential and mall sites.
So malls go through an evolution in the mid 60s. The 163rd Street Mall was a big outdoor thing, no air conditioning, right?
So it was Dadeland.
And Dadeland when it first opened, and then it was air conditioned. Oh, an air conditioned mall, isn't it great? All right. So here's
about rain too, by the way.
All right. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And so here we are now, 2020-ish, right? And it's the evolution of malls brought on mostly by Amazon and Group.
They're going to have to sit there and look at it. They may have to put some office buildings. I mean, what they need to do is capture an audience, right? Because if you don't have that audience, people aren't driving to the malls as much as they used to.
It's going to be like a miniature city.
Yes, it is going to be. It's going to
Well,
be.
look at Dadeland. You know, our successful areas. Look at Dadeland, and it's in. So my wife's from Houston, and you know, you go to the malls and they have a skating rink.
Mhm.
They have you know, back, you know, again, COVID was affected some of this, but you know, they're really high end theater experiences.
Correct.
You know, with your own sofa and catered and food and stuff. So I don't know. I'm interested to see, because I feel sometimes I think like everyone's like, oh, retail's dead, and I think
Retail's not dead.
I will know retail's dead when all that stuff starts converting to housing. And we're not seeing it yet. It's not what I'm saying. It's not happening yet. I don't think people are like, I was thinking about it.
Well, you might be able to make more money if you sit there and convert it to housing, if you want to know the truth.
But I don't know, but it hasn't gotten quite there yet. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's quite gotten there yet. I'm not an expert in that area, but I just haven't seen many malls turning over. But I would say, like, for example, you see retail's dead, but then you look at what's the complex where Swenson's and Misha Cupcakes was?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what you
That's
call that
going to be a
place.
Publix.
You know, like it's turning into you know,
More
a
retail.
supermarket,
Yeah, correct.
but it's a different kind of retail.
So let's look at malls. For years were gathering places, and people would go and maybe they'd shop, all right, but they would go and meet their friends. And I haven't been to the mall really very much at Dayland, but we went over to Dolphin Mall.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many people at those restaurants. We had to park. I felt like,
you know what? Our problem is what we're looking at is tier 1 malls, right? So we haven't been to look at some of the tier 2 malls that may be in Broward or West Palm Beach and stuff. And there's a bunch of them. Yeah. And they got to figure out, you know, they have to stop and change direction and say, okay, do I build, you know, the land is land, right? Sometimes the biggest expensive building is the land value. That's why you see all these high rises, because if you didn't have a high rise that was 50 stories high, you couldn't afford the land.
So part of it, when people buy malls, that maybe they're in that business, but the bigger picture is they want to make money. So I have this land over here. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty big piece of land. What are we going to do? Tropic Drive-In is a perfect example. It was a drive-in for all those years. They paid the rent or whatever. All of a sudden you go and Best Buy and all that stuff is there. So maybe that is going to change the way that we do business. But we still know people want to socialize. The question is, where are they going to go? I'll meet you over at the mall.
This is what the generation who's grown up the last.
Do you actually know how to work that?
Yeah, I'm very good.
Who helps you with that?
Who's your wife? Anyway, so
clever.
Ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer.
Look at Tommy.
Anyway,
Tommy's like, ouch.
So anyway, now you lost my train. So if you look at there's serious issues right now. Okay, with kids, you sit there and the last 10, 15 years, I'm sure your local sports teams have been decreasing. Because of
forget sports team. Let's talk about mainland
wait, because of the kids. The kids are so into the, you know, Xbox or their phones.
So let me jump in. I say we've had some of the football coaches, and they say that you know, if they respect the technology, and they say if I was growing up today, like, what, you know, do you really want to go outside in the 100-degree heat and sweat, and get your hand in the dirt and play this sport, or do you want to stay home and play this awesome video game?
There's no tactile enjoyment. There's no tactile function.
But we feel that way because we grew up up outside, right?
Absolutely.
These kids, it's like, you know, they're really like, they see it as competition. And it's interesting you say that's how that's going to change this next generation on how they socialize for these big events. Because I was going to say, one of the things is, you know, some radical people would say, we need to turn these malls into green space and make parks and make areas for people.
Oh, I like that idea, actually.
But
we don't have the money to buy. We don't have the money to buy them.
Exactly.
I mean,
that's never going to happen.
We don't have the money to buy them.
That's never going to happen.
But I mean, it really would be nice to listen. Have you been to Boulder, Colorado?
I have.
I mean, they have the best green space of any city I've ever been into my entire life. I was mentioning that to somebody the other day. They're like, okay, you can build here, but if you build here, we got to have this much green space. Yeah. Right? Wouldn't that be a great philosophy? You know, your build here, we'll take your the money that you're going to give the city, and we'll buy some more green space. So it offsets.
Okay, so let's talk about infrastructure in Miami-Dade County. The new mayor's
We
very,
have some.
very, very green. She wants to do something about the 120,000 septic tanks that we have. New piping, clean up the bay.
Isn't that a $3 billion price tag?
The what's it called? The Army Corps of Engineers. That's several $billion. You've seen some plans on that, how to try to control that. But that has nothing to do. That has to do with flooding. That has nothing to do with cleaning up the bay. I know they're out there trying to do that. Big part of it is where's the money going to come from to replace these pipes that are under the ground? It may be coming because the infrastructure programs that are in place across the country, it may be there.
Yeah.
One day, we may not be able to find a handyman, around the house except for $200 an hour.
Laying sewer pipe everywhere.
Well, you're gonna have to bond it out. Number one. Okay, so whatever you do is gonna have to be bonded out and scheduled out in the long future. I agree with her. I mean, I always say to everybody, humans are like locusts.
This is no reference to any politician.
This is no reference to any politician or the two individuals that are sitting on either side of me. You sit there and they build and they destroy and they move on to the next place that they build and they destroy and they move on to the next place they build and destroy. There's no respect at all for the environment we live in.
Okay, so you're an animal guy.
What do you not agree with that?
Okay.
Listen. Let's finish.
Okay.
Before it's funny that you say that because we were out in California, and one of the friends we were staying with, is pretty green, pretty Californian. She said that she goes, one of the most innovative people in our country right now is Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is not focusing on saving the planet we live on. Elon Musk is focused on what? Colonizing this inhospitable, unlivable rock called Mars.
Correct.
That's human. That's the
Right.
ultimate.
Well, we're
locust
gonna
move.
have to go someplace after
That's
we
the
destroy.
ultimate locust move. Let's move on to another
And
planet.
he is quoted recently say, "And you may not come back." All right. All right. And
It's a
there's-
one-way trip.
All right.
There you go.
And by the way, Tommy's volunteered for that trip.
All right.
Tommy is
I wanna
already.
be the first
He
one.
wants to go to Mars.
Wait, are you kidding me? Tommy's already the first Martian that lives in.
Can you imagine?
Okay.
Not to call it Tommy. Can you imagine Tommy's spaceship? Tommy in his spaceship and another spaceship full of beer following him.
Oh, I thought it would be smoke. I thought it would be smoke coming out the windows.
So just about every day, David and Tommy do a show called Mainline
Mainland dolphins.
Dolphins, Marlins. These guys are really smart. They do a nice show. They do it. Sometimes they think they're talking to people that can't hear them. But anyway, and also Howard has joined us. All right, over there. Welcome, Howard.
Howard's a great guy.
Yes,
He did a great job on my show.
yes. And so David's every Thursday. What time?
4 to 5.
4 to 5.
By the way, and
Gloves off, also
Gloves off.
known as Loser's Corner.
There you go. So
Why would they have a name like that, David? Winker.
So anyway, and just for everybody's
By the way, David Singer
we
here
are-
recently lost an election, but it's okay.
that's
We
okay.
still love
I
you,
don't have a
David.
problem. Actually, I'm enjoying this a lot more than sitting
Yeah,
with
all the
5
people that lose say that.
Yeah. So anyway, at my show yesterday, we were the first to do a call-in number.
Yes.
Which was 786-584-7665, which I should have actually given out.
Yeah, we should for today.
Today, we could have had Gene Flynn call in. But I think you've admitted that went very well.
It did.
And that we were going to other talk
Yes.
shows.
Yeah, we're going
are
to do that.
To do that.
Tommy's going to
And-
show us how to do that.
And I think that's a
That
beautiful
sounds
thing.
awesome.
It is going to be awesome. You can call up. I can talk to you.
I'll call
and
up.
I can ignore everybody else.
And you go on Facebook and Twitter and like the Marlins people, whatever we call them. All right. Do the same for Mr. Singer. And
Why do people keep hitting me? I'm in the middle. I mean, talking about gloves off. I mean, seriously.
Gloves off.
all right, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
somebody wrap
So
it
now
up.
it's, the no name show. That's what we're known as for now. So we're going to have to come
Not
back
three,
next week.
the three amigos.
And the
The three
one-legged
amigos and a
skeleton.
one-legged.
There's some pizza over there for you.
Okay, great. I've really enjoyed myself. I'm glad I called you out yesterday.
Nice to see
And I'm
you.
actually hitting you now. Where's the HR department in this place?
Yeah, say goodbye. So,
Anyway, so we have to say goodbay. I got it.
Tommy, thank
Have a
you,
great
Howard.
weekend.
Thank
Tommy,
you. Thank you, guys.
Howard. Thank
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.